So you can tell, so you can be proud of your culture. Like I'm English culture. I have Italian culture, German culture, heritage. Yes, I 100% agree. But when you say just broad brush as white culture, it doesn't even make any sense. Like, so wait a minute. If white culture is whatever, one singular culture, then why does only recently that the British started to accept Irish? You know what I mean? Or Spanish.
Right. No,
They used
it's
to hate each other. So,
yeah, the whites there are many white cultures and there are many white civilizations. And
hmm
I kind of I heard the contrast stated before that you can have culture or you can have civilization. The more you get into culture, the more you get away from civilization, being civilized.
hmm
You can have like a little bit of a balance to it, I guess.
I think so.
But a lot of times the people who are the most into culture are like the least civilized, the least functional in terms of cooperating, being lawful and orderly, um, stuff like that, being
Mm.
peaceful. People say whites don't have a culture, and that's
No,
kind
that's
of
not
a
true, right?
it's not exactly true, but there is something that's true about it, in that they can adopt good things from other cultures, and
Right,
also that they build up cities or build up towns or whatever, and
right,
um, work together because it's
right,
just people.
right.
Yeah, I feel
So
like the
that's, I
whites
think,
are exploited because of that reason, and shame on them for letting themselves be exploited in that way.
exactly. Then it's even more when you go down to deeper thinking of if these. I mean, it is sad to even say these people call themselves like uh, they believe in science and all this stuff. And you
Right.
can. And I started to realize in 2020 that the people who easily say they believe in science, but they do all this mandates and lockdowns without any proof,
Right.
so forth, and they have Trump derangement syndromes and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
without any proof. I mean, the effectiveness of vaccines, even they started to lie about, and it's like a racial riots, and J6 is the same, or like then you started to understand, like, oh, then I discovered the Yuri interview, and like, oh, this demoralization has already been completed, so
Yeah.
we
So
we are
true.
in a destabilization now.
Yeah. That is so true.
So
We're very destabilized and demoralized. Even on the right. It's so bad.
exactly,
The demoralization is so bad that the people on the right, if you will, are
right,
some of us are celebrating and we're kind of infighting over whites rioting in the UK because we're so desperate for somebody to stand up so that we'll take standing up in the wrong way and take that as a good thing. And
right,
that's demoralization. You're demoralized.
right. I mean, it's already been. We can almost see it in the real life that everybody's demoralized. I
Yeah.
mean, otherwise, like some the quarter at the end talking to Jesse about men start doing the manicure and pedicure and all this stuff, and
Right.
it's demoralized. Like why would you, if you're men born as men, and why would you trying to be like women
Yeah,
functions like feminine?
you're talking about that young man James on the Jesse Lee
hmm
Peterson show toward the end of the show. He called in about Dwayne Wade painting his nails with nail polish, and Jesse mentioned he's letting his son go into the transgender thing, and even that caller is demoralized because he's getting angry and upset about it, and he wants to
Right.
be a Christian, but he himself is demoralized by this evil in the world.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know you and Jesse's show is Christian faith show. So I know you might not heard of or never seen, but since I'm from Japan and I try and understand my cultural upbringing is and so forth. So recently, I even studied, for instance, on like I don't know if you know the guy named like Yukio Mishima.
Possibly.
Who was
I feel like that's something more that Anchor Baby might have heard of. I have no idea,
right,
but
exactly.
he knows a
So
lot of stuff like that. Okay, who is this person? What about him?
so he's a Japanese writer. He's of course it's the name. It's his real name is not Yukio Mishima, but he's a Japanese writer from after the war. And he was talking about as a Japanese man after the war lost the purpose because men
Oh, wow.
are supposed to be men and understand that we need to sometimes face death. And when you take away the faith in a death as a man, we lose peace because all of our history, the death was next to us. But now you start taking away the death and say, no, you don't have to worry. So what he heard right after the war is that he called it scholars. Scholars started to rise up and say, from now on, this is our time and our future now.
Wow.
We're going to take over, and we're going to make Japan better. So his mind was, what's better? What are you talking about? So am I wrong, like, to feel as a man? And, you know, is it bad for me to be manly, for instance?
Right.
So I think that's where it's. I think we saw that in probably a similar thing in Japan. I didn't know it was ever gonna come to United States, but we saw that in Japan was even in 80s and 90s, people started doing pedicure, manicure as men, and they start plucking their eyebrows. And if you see any anime, for instance, that is as demoralized thing you can ever see because men look like women, women look so they men and women both look exactly identical.
Yeah.
So you're taking away, identity as a man even. So he was right when he was saying this in the 50s and 60s. So he was, they called him right winger. He just wanted, to me, I think what Jesse sometimes say things and stuff like that, I kind of see, if you watch Yukio Mishima, I think he had an interview in Japanese. It's kind of hard to watch, but it has a translation at the bottom with the NHK. I guess the station was, but that's what he says. Like, after the war, I lost the purpose. Then all these scholars saying that it's their time now, and it's no longer for the men like me. And I think that's where Japan went wrong direction. It's just they all now kind of. Then I remember clearly I lived there in the 80s. I think it was a crazy number, 60 or 70% of citizens in Japan at the time were asked, unanimously agreed that if anybody come and attack Japan, would you defend? 70% said no.
Wow. Interesting. And that's
where
that's happening here too.
It's happening now. I mean, when I landed first in 1990, it wasn't. Everybody like, hey, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what it is. We are Americans, neighbors. We're going to stick together. If there's any outside force coming in, of course, we're going to beat them.
Right.
Now it's gone. It started to dissipate. And I'm scared that I'm seeing the similar things happen in Japan in the 80s and 90s. Now it's, guys who look like women and all this stuff happening. And same things are going to happen here.
That's wild.
And, you might not like it or seen it before, but just find any anime and you can see it's insane. It's just all the guys who look like women in the face and long hair. And, I mean, that's where the kids watch. So they're trying to demoralize kids.
Yeah. Wow, that is interesting, Taka.
Right.
I appreciate this call. It's good to hear from you. Call me again, man.
All right. Thank you, Ake. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate taking my call.
Yeah. Very interesting, man. Take care.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I had heard this anchor movie, I feel like has mentioned that Japan's going through very similar things with the birth rates. And it's interesting to hear a Japanese man, immigrant to America, I guess, 30, 40 years or something, talking about how the men have become women. What a mess. And that's happening here. I thought of myself, honestly. I have to admit, guys, you haters, you guys calling Hake a pacifist, it reminds me, if people were to invade America, I mean, they're already doing it. Our enemy is really within us and then within the country too. Like the outsiders, yeah, I mean, they're enemies, but we have kind of wide open borders and we're letting them in. The enemy in America is letting more enemies into America. But would I stand up? Would I be willing to fight for the country and be like, oh, no, uncle, I'm saying uncle, ouch, 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 you know? Some of you Southerners, I've heard some of you guys talk about, like there's this UFC fighter guy. And shout out to the UFC fighters. They can be hit and miss. But there was this one guy who said, oh, if they invaded my land in Kentucky, you bet my area in Kentucky, you bet I'd boot up, put on my boots and fight for my land. But I'm not going to fight for Ukraine. You dip for sure, LOL, says Irish Repub 84.